Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Matthew Porcelli. I am ISRM's North American Hub President. I am very fortunate to be joined by Farah Benis, uh, fellow of the ISRM. She is a member of the Global Advisory Board based in the UK. How are you, Farah, this morning? I believe we just said it is 11 a.m. your time, 6
Yeah,
a.m. my
thank
time.
you for having me, Matthew. And yes, it is 11 a.m. here in the very sunny UK at the moment.
Okay. So one of the things that, you and I have worked together before, at least volunteer. I feel like we volunteer, we're serial volunteers, the two of us. But one of the things I admire about our relationship, in a sense of our volunteer relationship, is that we're serial volunteers. I mean, we're servant leaders and such, but we do it all for the right reasons. And again, when it comes to volunteering, and more importantly with post nominals, we with fellowships specifically, I mean, you and I hold this the honor of having ISRM fellows, the fellow postnominals. Now, when did you receive yours? I received mine in 2021. How about yourself?
Oh, goodness, you're putting me on the spot already. I
Yeah,
think it
right
was
out of the
around
gate. I'm sorry. I'm just
I should have checked. I think it was 2023.
okay.
It was, I had So about a year into my membership with the ISRM, and this was before I became a fellow, I was leading what became one of the only, well, was the only, and it became the largest study into sexual harassment in the UK security industry.
Hmm.
And I wasn't particularly well known in the sector then, certainly not in the way that I am today. And I was approaching organizations asking for support. So I emailed David explaining to him what I was trying to achieve. And his response was immediate, which was just, yes, what do you need from us? Send us an invoice. And that was it. No lengthy approval processes, no committees, no months of back and forth, just someone recognizing that this was important work and asking, how can we help? Ironically, a number of much larger organizations put me through endless hoops and in the end didn't even support the project. But that really stayed with me because it told me everything that I needed to know about David and the ISRM as well. That study, just to go off on a little tangent, ultimately gathered responses from more than 2,100 security professionals across the UK. And it was sobering. 70% of all respondents had experienced sexual harassment while working in the industry.
Hmm.
99% of female respondents had experienced it. I can go on more stats, but the important thing is that that research has gone on to inform conversations across the profession. But it would never have happened without organizations like the ISRM backing it at a stage when it was just an idea and I was just someone asking for help. And for me, that perfectly sums up David and the ISRM. It's an organization that is built around people saying, how do we make this happen rather than why can't we do it? And that going to my fellowship is then after I'd done that and I was promoting the ISRM a lot and I was talking a lot about it, then David and I had a discussion about fellowship. And, he said that he thought I'd be suitable for it because of all the work that I was doing.
Oh, absolutely.
It was, great.
Right, and yeah, I could definitely attest to that. Again, we know each other from, not only ISRM but from ASIS as well, and it's all the work you do. It's amazing. I follow you on LinkedIn as well, and it's just the fellowships, especially with ISRM, it's really a testament to not only the discipline or acumen one has in strategic risk and crisis management, and in my case, being a frontline security professional and management professional, but also seeing there's different niches. You don't necessarily have to be like yours. For instance, you had just mentioned, your niche in it with the sexual harassment and so forth, and just making that reach out for help. And again, I know also David very well, and it's always that how and that always how can we help and so forth. That's what I also love about the ISRM as well, is that I could pick up, I could, well, I don't think people use phones anymore, but I could send an email and reach out to somebody like yourself or somebody else and just ask for assistance. I mean, I know probably, I mean, don't quote me on this, but I'm probably one of the only contract security fellows. I think actually Gary Bergen, and Gary, if you're listening, forgive me if I'm wrong on this. I believe he also does contract security, and he's also a fellow. But I know for me, my niche is more in the contract security. So if somebody needed to reach out to me for, contract security, maybe even though I'm based in the US, but again, me being more on this side of the pond, as we like to say, our transatlantic relationships here, even though ISRM is global, we could reach back towards each other as a mutual aid, more or less. Now,
That collaboration is so
it
important,
is. Yeah.
right? And it leads into sort of, why the fellowship is important as well. I think, because it's so much more than just recognition. It is wonderful to have your contribution acknowledged by your peers, but that's a secondary benefit to it
Yeah,
because
no,
a
absolutely.
fellowship represents trust, right?
Yeah,
It's a recognition that you've received, well, that you've reached a point in your career where you're not just developing yourself as well, but you have a responsibility to help develop the profession and the people within it. And the collaboration that we have and that I have with so many other people due to my involvement with the ISRM is incredible. And I think, thinking of like knowledge sharing, that's something that's so important to me. I've made you, contribute articles for
yeah,
things that I'm
yes.
doing.
Thank you for
But,
that. Offer
knowledge only
security at
has,
it. Yes,
yeah, exactly. But, knowledge only has value if it's shared, right? And
absolutely.
whether, we're mentoring someone who's just starting out or contributing to research or speaking at events. I see you've been on the speaking circuit quite a lot recently. But
Likewise.
it never ends.
Yeah,
But or there's that connecting people who would never have met before, right? And
right.
I think that all of that is what a fellowship should be about. You know, it's it's not a finish line, it's the complete opposite, right? It's a
True.
commitment that's going to keep on contributing to things. And
Absolutely. Yeah,
that's
there's
what I love about it.
likewise, and again, there's one thing that I always like to say, and I don't, and I'm a wholeheartedly believe in this, and I'm sure you are, and I'm not sure I know you are as well, is that the ISRM, they don't just give away fellowships. I've always gone on record numerous times that getting the ISRM fellowship was a humongous honor. It's a huge honor to have. There are a lot of, and I probably said this. This is actually episode 6 of Fellow to Fellow. I've probably said on each episode that I've seen people with 26 post nominals after their names on LinkedIn. Some are, and again, I'm not trying to discourage people. I mean, some of them are they're very reputable. But if you are getting a post nominal, especially a fellowship, ISR, like, so for example, ISRM's fellowship, there is a validation board, there is a process to go through. It's not just handed out as um, thanks for joining. Here you go. This is a good face. Here's a fellowship just to put as an F.ISRM. No, and that's so for me personally, and transparently, as you and I were discussing prior to the call, I've been, as the North American Hub president and really overseeing the U.S. chapter. This is my final year as being the North American Hub U.S. chapter, however you want to say it, president, as I'm going to be moving into more of the fellowship, helping and doing that direction. One of the items that I'm really going to be taking, really being pinpointing on is ensuring, which ISRM is doing a great job now. Simon Webb, who's great as well, is making sure to hold and the word I can't look for. I know it's 6 in the morning. I've been up since 4:30 in the morning, so I'm probably semi-delirious still. But making sure that there's still that reverence and adaptability to the ISRM fellowship, that it's not seen, and I'm not saying it is seen, but just to make sure that people realize that when you go to apply for a fellowship with the ISRM, that it does hold weight. And it's not just a CV. I mean, yes, you use it for a CV because, yeah, I mean, I'm very proud to, as you are as well, and the other fellows that have it. But again, once you are an ISRM fellow, that opens doors.
No, look, I want to say I think it's so great that that's sort of your next chapter with the ISRM as well, because it is such an important thing. Um, but also, I guess to say, yes, it has value, but I think for me, the thing I value most is that also being a fellow, there's no hierarchy and it's not the status part. It is genuinely about the people who are willing to give their time, share their expertise, and genuinely support one another. And
Mhm.
that happens in abundance within this organization. And that is the sort of professional community that I want to be a part of.
Right, and that's what's been key. I mean, I've been a member of ISRM for since 29 was it before the pan? No, it was 2020, late 2020. And yeah, that's what keeps me here too. And listen, my bandwidth is very limited. I'm not I don't have, I mean, I have a full-time job, I have a wife, kids, and probably not as much sleep, but that's what keeps me coming back too, is because like you, I am an idealist to the industry. I love what I do. And when you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life. But also, I want to say as well, and this is something that really adds to the I don't know why I cannot get this word out this morning. And I guarantee when this is over, it's gonna pop into my head. The integrity, that's it. This adds to the integrity of the fellowship program, is that not everybody is accepted as a fellow if they put in an application. And that's not, that's done for, it's done for a reason as well, but it's not meant to discourage. I mean, there are times that goes for people that go for awards and whatnot. And again, hopefully people are adult enough. I mean, unfortunately, and I'm sure Farah, you've seen it too. People take it, they grumble. But I mean, thankfully, good news is people that apply for fellowships obviously have that background. Otherwise, they wouldn't really put in or be nominated for one and so forth. But um, just so people understand that if a fellowship is not right at the time, ISRM has other memberships as well. It's what you put into is what you get out of it. I know
With
right. I
everything.
mean, so for you, Farah, I mean, and again, what did for your fellowship? It's constantly evolving, right? I mean, even a member of the Global Advisory Board, you use that fellowship for your networking. They actually, ISRM has a portal for it. I mean, you and I registered on the portal for it as well. You being in the UK, me being in the US. I mean, there's no lines on a map. Just because my background here is New York doesn't mean anything. I mean, I just told you I'm in a supply closet here now, but it doesn't matter.
Mirrors, smoke and mirrors.
It is. It is smoke and mirrors. But the point is that again, it holds such value into the industry and to the strategic risk and crisis management sector. You would, yeah, and obviously you would definitely agree.
Yeah, 100%. But also it kind of goes back to that community, right? Um,
Absolutely.
I first met David at an event, I think 5, 6 years ago. But what struck me immediately was his ability to build communities.
Hmm.
There are plenty of people who can organize conferences or put together networks. But David has this brilliant ability to bring people together from completely different backgrounds who all genuinely want to contribute. And as we got talking and I started learning more about the ISRM, what really resonated with me was the culture. We have, and there is this very real let's get stuff done attitude. So if you come along with an idea, the response isn't here's all the reasons why it won't work. It's that's interesting. How do we make it even better? Who else should be involved? And how can we help? My
Right.
study was a perfect example of that. But that mindset is actually incredibly unusual, especially in
Yeah.
our industry, right?
Well, yeah, and
So
then you
many,
have, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry. Yeah.
no, it's okay. I was just saying, so many organizations, they become bogged down, right, in process and politics and all of these things. And the ISRM feels so different. You know, it is incredibly collaborative, incredibly generous with people's expertise, and it's action oriented. And that's something I've always loved because I'm exactly the same. You know, I enjoy creating things and solving problems and bringing people together, especially around issues that matter, which is a really important thing as well. I don't know if the listeners are familiar with our Centre for Studies of Wicked Problems, but that was one thing that really appealed to me about it. When I was in school, my friend's dad had a nickname for me, which was GTW Farah, Get to Work Farah. And I was 6 or 7 years old at that time. And honestly, not much has changed in the
Do they still
35.
call you that?
Yes, indeed.
GW Farah?
Um,
I like that.
you know, a lot has changed, but you know what I mean. But the more involved I became with ISRM, I realized that this was a community that I genuinely wanted to contribute to rather than simply just be a member of. And I think for people out there who are thinking about where their place is, you know, that's the kind of community that ISRM is.
Right, and another thing too, and that's brilliant, Farah, and get to work, Farah, I should say, is that you don't have to be a strategic risk and crisis management specialist. I mean, to be, and this is like, and I've still mentor young professionals, even though I'm 41, so I think I've aged out, and even transitioning law enforcement that are trying to get into the private sector. I know for me, like I never was a CRO, or I was a security officer now in a management and training role, but you don't have to. I mean, I think a lot of people are intimidated by big, they see, okay, ISRM, strategic risk crisis management, and they think, oh my God, this is above my role. But no, that's not the case. That's why it's so important to have the young mentorship programs and the women in risk and so
We are
forth.
so interconnected, right? And I don't think there's ever been a more important time to be talking about strategic risk, right?
Oh,
The world is
especially.
becoming so much more interconnected and at the same time so much more unpredictable. You know, whether we're talking about the geopolitical instability or cyber threats or misinformation, AI is obviously a big one, but organized crime, climate events, violence against women and girls, which I do a lot of work in. But none of these challenges exist in any kind of isolation, right? So different people working in different sectors, risk work, the conversations about risk work everywhere because all of this stuff overlaps, it evolves quickly. And also, it has massive consequences far beyond organizations that are directly affected
Oh,
by things.
absolutely, yeah. And
But
it
that's
affects
all.
everybody. And you don't have to be in a security role. And then that's the thing that, when I see people going through turnstiles and piggybacking, and I stop them, and then my voice gets deeper. Excuse me, sir, man. That's why apparently my officers tell me my voice gets deeper. And you know me, I'm not a very confrontational person, but when the voice gets deeper, that's when I'm getting into that security role. It's everybody's responsibility. And again, you don't have to be a Farah or a Matthew. You don't have to understand that even now, like I'm just as you were saying that, here and everywhere with the FIFA World Cup, that Knicks parade that we had in downtown Manhattan with the 250th anniversary of the independence of the US. It's crazy down, especially down in this part of the US. It's just, well, all over for that matter, not just here in the US, but I will probably one of the last sentiments for me is that the world needs more ISRM fellows, period. But right? I mean, it's
Yeah, but it's also important to think about the fact that risk leadership has changed, right? So, and that's where this comes into it. It is no longer enough to simply just identify threats and write a risk register,
yeah.
But today's leaders really need to understand that the people behind everything as much as the processes.
Hmm.
We need leaders who are curious and adaptable and willing to work across disciplines. The solutions for tomorrow's problems aren't going to come from one profession alone. And that's where, again, the ISRM just fills so nicely because it brings together expertise from security, from intelligence, from policing, academia, government, industry, all sorts. And it actually shows, strategic risk does not respect any kind of organizational boundaries. Right. I will also say, just briefly, as a woman in the profession, I think I bring a perspective that's historically been quite underrepresented
Yeah.
within our profession. And that diversity, people need to understand it's not just about ticking boxes, it's about better decision making. So when everyone around the table has the same experiences, if we were all Matthews or if we were all Farahs, it wouldn't be helpful to anyone.
Mhm.
Because inevitably we then see the world through a similar lens. So the more varied the perspectives are, the more likely we are to identify blind spots. And that's where, again, I keep going back to the ISRM just builds in spades, because there are so many different people, so many different backgrounds. And
Mhm.
as you said earlier, this fellowship allows us to, transcend those boundaries in amazing ways.
And that is, I think that is a beautiful and brilliant sentiment to end on. And the thing is, it never ends. I think the acumen, that's my word for the day, acumen. And being that the ISRM is academic and Dr. David Rubin's coined it pracademic. Um, acumen, pracademic. I love using that word, but that is his. And there's no end in sight, Farah, for this. And if you need any, obviously Farah and I are very LinkedInable. If you have any questions about those who are listening or watching, you have any questions about the ISRM Fellowship, and forgive me for volunteering you, but knowing you obviously keep yourself open like I do. Please reach out to us as well, or anything regarding to the ISRM. Well, with that, Farah, I thank you very much for taking the time on this episode 6 of Fellow to Fellow. With that, everybody stay safe and have a wonderful day wherever you are. Take care. Bye bye.